Welcome, Army fans. This is Joe Iacono with GoBlackKnights.com with your bye-week version of the GBK podcast. And because it's a bye week, we get some special access to some awesome return VIP guests. Army offensive line coach Matt Drinkall. Matt, how are things going during the bye week for you?
Doing pretty good. Just got off the practice field on a beautiful Wednesday and off and running. So just getting ready for Rice.
Good stuff. We'll start with, today, obviously at West Point, this probably hits home harder than a lot of other D1 programs around the nation. Today being 9/11, the 23rd anniversary of the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Two questions surrounding that event for you, Coach Drinkle. One, now you're one of the younger coaches, so your experience might be a little different than, say, Coach Monken or some of the folks who are closer to my age. Do you recall where you were when the attacks happened and kind of what your reaction was that day?
Yeah, I do. I actually, my wife and I were talking about this in detail last night, and I got pretty choked up because it's one of those things you don't really like when you put yourself back into the actual moment, like how powerful that was. Um, I remember watching the first building being on fire, and I remember I was a freshman in college. So it was actually weird. I was talking to Brandon Ralsted today, and I was like, geez, I was your age when this happened. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I just remember the whole, like, we were in the student union at Iowa, and when everybody's sitting there trying to figure out what could have happened. Did something hit the building? Did a bomb go off? You didn't had no idea. And then I remember all of us, without saying a word, when the second plane hit, and everyone realized in real time this was coordinated and on purpose. The deafening silence from that is like unlike anything I've ever seen. And I will say this to the younger people that weren't around when it happened. Like, as big, I think it says a lot about America and Americans that when something that big and powerful and impactful and tragic happened, we rallied. Like,
Yep.
Americans came together like I've never seen before ever. And I think that shows our resiliency and our spirit of our country and our people. And I think that's what makes us pretty neat. But man, what a profound event in all of human history. Unbelievable.
Yep, right. It's for a lot of us, it was definitely like the defining event of our lifetime. Our grandparents lived through Pearl Harbor, and this was kind of like the Pearl Harbor for the younger generation. You know, on Patriots Day, as some have known to call it, can you let everyone know what it's like to coach the young men, the young Patriots at Army, who've committed to serving their nation. A little different than coaching at a lot of other D1 schools, minus maybe two other schools.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, with the kids that we get to work with, I get asked that a lot, because I had no under center or option background before I mean, you get to work with them every day. I am surrounded with the best people, the most rewarding people to be around, which is really neat. My grandpa was in the first Armor Division in the Big Red One during World War II. My dad's dad. Um, my brother's retired Navy. My sister's husband is a retired colonel in the Army. So it's been really cool as a civilian getting here and now. Like, the one thing I'm still really bad about is all the acronyms, but it's really neat seeing, like, learning how the whole military function and how our kids negotiate their academic career, their networking and development, their strength and conditioning, which is the whole thing, the football piece, and their social lives. I mean, the things that these young guys balance and go through. And I really think like this, like, our team is comprised of a bunch of kids who understand the big picture and the long play, if that makes sense. So it's not, I joke with the kids all the time. Not only could I have never gotten in here, if I did, I'd have made it about 48 hours before somebody put me out, because I was never worried about how what I did today affected tomorrow when I was this kid's age.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm 41 now, and I talk to these kids, like, some of them, like, not only they're my peers, but they're my elders. Or some of these dudes are so smart and just worldly and experienced, and there's nothing like it. And then on top of which, you get to work with guys like Mike Vitti and Blake Powers, and it's unreal. Like, the overwhelming sense of pride you have being associated with this institution, and the people that have come before, and now, in my opinion, like, I don't want to sound like a crusty old guy, but like, what this place means in college football now, where everybody,
Yeah.
Will Montesi said it great, but he's just like, like, we carry the black flag, which is like, we're going to fight everywhere. And we live in the portal universe. And some kids need to transfer for legitimate good reasons,
Right.
but there's a lot of kids who it's just, hey, the white flag comes up and it's like, this isn't going my way right now the way I want it. Let me go. And our kids are learning those lessons, and they're tremendous in every way.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Matt. Like I'd like to do an hour-long podcast with you or one of the other coaches one time to talk about that. I think that's something we're learning, coming off the Florida Atlantic game, which this isn't a knock on Florida Atlantic or Cam Fancher or anybody else, but it's like, all right, they have a brand new quarterback who comes in, transfers in from Marshall, and he's super talented, which he was. But it's like, what I'm noticing as I'm watching games this year and looking around the country, maybe the portal is actually a little bit of an advantage for Army in the fact that you guys get to develop kids for 4 and 5 years. And when I came back and watched the game, the CBS broadcast after I was at the game last week. And one of the things the analyst on that game said is, as a staff, you guys know who Connor Finucane is. You know who Bryson Daly is. You know what they can do. You know what they can't do. They know your system. And so, in some ways, that might actually be an advantage over the schools like, I'm not going to name any names, but the schools that transfer in 50 and transfer out 40 every year.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Yeah, it is interesting. Like the portal, I do think like in the macro level of college football, I think kind of each place is geared to either use it or not have to use it kind of as much or as little as you want. For places like go back to where I'm from, where I recruit, like in the Midwest, to me, places like Iowa and Wisconsin,
Hmm.
and Iowa State and North Dakota State, I don't know that they're ever going to change. But if
Yeah.
there was I can sit and tell you I was a head coach before, and I wish the portal would have existed when you first get a job, because it's like, all right, well, if you're running a new system, you need to get the right pieces in, or
Right.
if you're depleted at depth because kids transferred out or whatever. So the other thing to keep in consideration is I think the NCAA did all that stuff with good intentions. So we're still
Yeah.
in the guinea pig phase of all of this, the NIL and the portal and the combination of both. And every year rules get changed, so it gets tweaked a little bit. So, but there's no doubt about it. Like a kid like Connor Finucane, who's started in over whatever 40 some, 50 some games here, and Lucas Scott, who's been with you every day. And I mean, Brady Small, I recruited him in his parents' living room, talk to him when he's at our prep school, coach him every single day since he's been here. And, I do think things like that help a ton. I was just telling some of the coaches, I think in 5 to 7 years, if nothing changes, college football is going to look like an all-star game outside of a couple places. I mean, it's going to be the people at the high up end of the food chain are going to go buy the best linemen from everywhere
Yep.
in the spring and the winter and summer. And then what can you run? Everybody's going to run zone and play a little bit of 7-on-7, and all the games are going to kind of look the same. So I think that's where, like, Coach Worley, what we're doing on offense, Coach Worley and Coach Vitti really drive the whole thing. It's unique, it's different, it plays to our strengths. Like it's really clean and organized. It's fun to coach in. It's fun to play in. It's fun to game plan with. I mean, it's a neat system and very unique.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I couldn't agree with you more. And from a kind of the story we're trying to tell at GBK, and I think a lot of my cohorts in the media are trying to tell is, as a fan of college football, if you're looking for a college football team to pull for, like, who better than Army right now? Like, it's inventive, it's unique. I got just sidebar. One of my really good friends, he's from South Carolina, grew up a huge Clemson fan. And he loves Iowa too. He loves the fullback and running the ball and all.
Smart
And
guy.
he has
Sounds like
been
smart.
jacked about Army football the last 2 weeks.
Well, it's really neat because we've really taken, like Coach Worley's knowledge base of this, the whole system, and how to plan it and how to build it, and how to teach it and simplify it and make it efficient. I mean, it's really unparalleled. He does a great job with it. I mean, it really does. And then on top of which, him and Vitti have been with Coach Monk for so long, they kind of know, like, this is the flavor of football Coach Monken likes to eat. You know what I mean? So it's how do we blend those two together? And they've done an unreal job with it. And yeah, it's just like I said, and I tell them in recruiting, like this, it's a great system to be a part of. And the only thing we've really had to tweak is that, Coach Vitti and I, we don't really, it's all pro style conventional O-line play. So
Mm,
we're a very long group. We have a freshman here who we beat an offer from Northwestern on. So we have kids that are picking here over Big Ten offers
mm.
because it's a unique thing. Because the way we teach technique up front is, it's not the 4-point stance coming out, which doesn't translate over to playing beyond college. So here
Right.
I think you guys had a really good article about it, that it's really like a power running system that also can run some option. So you do those things because it's what your staff, has the knowledge and time to teach. It's what you have to do to win and what your kids are good at. So to me, though, that's where you get the green light. And like I said, Coach Worley's just done such a good job of building this system to fit the kids, our needs in this conference, and what Coach Monk is looking for.
Yeah, and Matt, I really want to dig under the hood of that a little bit, because that was kind of my next couple of questions combined into one. First, I think it's really cool that you and Coach Vitti are kind of co-coaching the offensive line. I mean, when I think of an offensive lineman, when I think of what offensive linemen are supposed to be, who better than to coach this group than you and Coach Vitti? I think the energy level you guys have and just the toughness level probably blends perfectly with the mob's persona and attitude a little bit. And then, so how do you and Coach Vitti kind of work together? Like, how are your roles different? And kind of, what do you combine on? I know you're in the booth next to Coach Worley and Coach Vitti's down on the field. And I'll get into Coach Worley's play calling in a minute. But just talk about kind of the relationship between you and Mike and how you guys work together.
So Vidi, if anyone, I mean, I don't know if you are an Army football fan, how you don't know him, but
Right.
he's one of the most, I mean, unique people I've ever met. And this isn't like a kiss his butt fest or anything like that. But like the way I explain Vidi to everybody is he's kind of like an R-rated Captain America, but if he was like Elon Musk and Michael Jordan. Like if you like 2 weeks to do something, he would be in the 1% of it. Like if you told him today, hey, in 2 weeks you got to be an astronaut, he would be one of the best
You would do
astronauts. You told him the same thing,
it.
and in any line of work, he can do it. So the other thing is him having played here. What Vidi and I think work really well together. We're very, very close. We are as polar opposite personalities as you could possibly ever get, but we are completely aligned with how we teach, what we believe in, how we see this place. So Coach Vidi, he is the engine that drives the entire O-line, our culture, our demeanor, our toughness, everything like that. He is the root of that. And he has experience, like I said, how passionate he is about West Point. I mean, when he talks, you can feel it when he talks about
Yeah.
this. Like it's unbelievable. So where I come in, where I can help is like, I'm kind of just like this all the time. And I tell people that, like, there's times where if a kid needs like catch his breath or see something kind of explain a little more calm or to get a laugh, he probably comes and sees me. If he's got like super meticulous, detailed, nuanced things or needs a kick in the butt, that's probably a little bit more Vidi. And then we separate some of the scheme stuff because my whole background is conventional football, pro style football, and his is option. So it's like we can both learn and complement from each other a ton. And it's been where it helps you a ton is like I've never understood, like when I was a head coach, I had two line coaches because it allows you to take the centers apart from the guards and the tackles, or the
Mm,
tackles, and then you just play with your center and guard box. Or you can take the tackles and tight ends and work combinations or whatever it is they got to do and separate the inside guys. You can go front side and back side or right side
yeah.
and left. It just gives us so much more flexibility. And then in recruiting, obviously, we have more touch points. And when kids have a problem with, I can't really help much with homework, but a life skill or something like that, some of these kids take math classes here I've never even heard of. So that working with Vidi it's unlike anything else. Like he challenges you indirectly because he does such a good job and operates as a coach here at such a high level. You would rather die than let him down. And I feel like that as a coworker. I can't even imagine how the kids feel.
Wow. That's high praise, but nothing I haven't heard about Mike
Nah, he's the
Vitti
man. And
from every single person I've talked to.
Coach Beatty, way funnier than what people think too. So he doesn't let that
Okay.
out very
Good
much,
stuff.
but
Yeah. He's definitely a younger grad, so I don't know him and some of his classmates that well, but interesting. That's an interesting take. So
He's very
uh
smart, funny, so it's good. It works out great.
that is good. And it's always, I think it's important, they always told us on the first day of Beast, new cadet, never lose your sense of humor. So it's good that you and him can probably keep it a little light if the kids get too intense or too serious. So
Have
that's
to.
good.
I think he's good for me because he helps me stay a little bit probably more locked in when I need to be. And I'm probably good for him because he can take a deep breath and laugh once in a while when he probably needs to. So
That's good stuff. And now let's talk about kind of and obviously you got Blake Powers and Coach Romero and just a great staff on offense. But Cody Worley, you mentioned him earlier. From people who've watched Army for a number of years, right? We had the kind of OG triple option offense under Coach Monken, which looked a certain way. Everybody knew what it was. It was effective at the time. But it could, I don't want to get into a trouble here, but I mean, it could get a little bit predictable from time to time. And then last year we made the adjustment, and like I'm on a golf trip this week, and today on 7/18 I sliced my tee shot, so I overcorrected and of course hooked the next one into the woods on the left. And so we come back to this new offense with Coach Worley, where it's mostly under center but a little bit of gun. I'm noticing just in the first two games a lot of different formations, a lot of different motion looks, um, a lot of varied play calling. I mean, I just last week against Florida Atlantic, we were really impressed with the way he was able to adjust to their adjustments, and how they were okay. Initially it was clear they were going to shut down midline and shut down the fullback, or that was their goal. And then once Noah started blasting the perimeter, their guys started flying to the perimeter, and then it was like, okay, here comes Bryson on a counter with two lead blockers. I mean, it was it was grade A offensive stuff. So talk a little bit about his play calling and his philosophy and what you love about it.
yeah, like I said, I think he does. I think really good teams do a couple things. Like I said, it's like, what do you have to do to win? What does your staff have the knowledge and time to teach? And what do your best players do really well? And then on top of all of that, that's packaged up with working for Jeff Monken, who's a demanding guy. And well, I think Coach Worley's done an unbelievable job of is that he does such a good job from like a macro level of understanding the temperature of each of those areas and then organizing the whole thing. Like this dude, I'm telling you, like, so when Coach Monken made him the OC, and it wasn't like, hey, we're meeting right away and here's what we're going to do. I mean, he and Coach Vitti planned out the entire offense. Like every word that we use matters and it means something, and as a result, it has allowed the comprehension of the offense to be learned and absorbed by the kids really, really easy. Like I'm learning a ton about option football every day that I get to watch him game plan and work and go through everything. But man, you kind of look at a lot of the things I think about. Okay, really good offenses. What do they do that puts stress on a defense? And Coach Worley organically and really effectively and really simply has we have a lot of formations that put stress on a defense. We have a lot of unbalanced and tackle over and shifts and motions and different tempos. So there's a lot of stuff that he does that puts stress on defenses before we ever even snap it. Then on top of which, like I said, the majority of our run game looks a lot like the rest of college football. We're inside zone, power, counter tray, quick game, drop back pass, play action pass, and then the option element, which he knows and operates like it's an organic piece of who he is. I mean, he understands like, hey, this defense, this is the strengths, this is the weaknesses. He does an unreal job of communicating that in the game planning piece. So really like, and then the option piece, like you said, you mentioned staff wise, like we have Aaron Smith who coaches the receivers, who's kind of like me, like I don't want to use the term outsider, but like a offensive guy who brings that background. But then we hired Coach Romero from Wofford, and him and Coach Worley know each other and what he brings to the table from an option side, that is, you know, a little bit different system, but same concepts as what Coach Worley and Coach Vitti have coached in. I mean, it's been a really pleasant uh, blend of people that are really, you know, like I said, Coach Worley's the, you know, the mastermind and the architect, and we just get to be operators. That's like a really nice part of coming to work is my job is to just get the offensive line guys to execute their plan and support him as much as possible, which is awesome. And like I said, I do think in games, like it's fascinating watching, like his brain can work with this stuff so fast, it's hard to keep up. So I can't say enough good things about that.
Yeah, what really impressed me in the FAU game. I feel like in the past there's been times where we've thrown the ball and we didn't need to throw the ball, and I felt like every pass he threw was like the perfect timing. Like I was like that was the right call at the right time. Like it was amazing to me how he did
Well,
that.
without going into too much detail, like I said, Coach Worley really, really organized. So he's got a really clean system as far as like how he structures not only what we carry, but like complementary pieces that fit. So like the runs look like the passes and vice versa, and the motions carry over. And he puts a ton of thought into how, if I was the defensive coordinator, how would I be defending it? And I think just that and his knowledge and expertise, like I said, like he's as cool as the other side of the pillow during a game, man. I mean, he understands what's going on, the adjustments, he communicates it to the whole staff. And I mean, it's really neat getting to watch him work.
That's really cool. And so, through two games, Army's leading the nation in rushing with 390 yards a game now on average. Um, and obviously, a lot of that has to do with the extremely talented stable of backs and skill players that Army has. But it all starts up front with the mob. So, you guys have your five starters, but you rotate in a lot of people. Just kind of give the fans a Reader's Digest version of the personnel, kind of maybe their top strengths as you see them, and kind of a little bit of the philosophy behind the rotations and those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't ever want to play with just five. So we want to do everything we can. Like during the course of a season, you really would like to have at minimum three people playing at tackle and four people playing at your interior three. So that way, if somebody ever gets banged up or there's a front that requires something different or somebody's practicing better, you're not week 3 or 4 playing somebody in a game for the first time. So we're really right now, we're really confident with about we got a couple guys that are a little bit slow because they were coming off an illness or an injury. But in the first 2 games, we've rotated 6 guys pretty heavily. So starting off on the left side, the guy who probably everybody knows the most would be Connor Finucane. So he does a great job, and he gives us flexibility to play on the right side, the left side at tackle. He actually jumps in at guard some in an emergency, but he's like Hannibal Lecter smart. I mean, he's like unreal, this guy. So he knows all 5 positions, every nuance, like yeah, I mean, I sincerely hope he gets a chance to play after college. He's a technician. One thing that happened with him was he had a lot of unique training to do in the summer, so he lost quite a bit of weight.
Yeah.
As a result, he knew I'm not as big and as strong as I've had to be. I have to focus on and become a master technician. And as a
Yep.
result, it's made him a way better football player, much more productive football player. So he's done a great job. And, he was we weren't positive he was going to be able to play this year or not. So he's an operator right now for us. He's been great. Can't say enough good things about him. Another staple would be Booby Law, who's been able to play tackle for us quite a bit. And he's
Yep.
like an option guru. He's super athletic, and he's really added some power and some technique to his game that allow him to be a mauler like the other 5 guys. He's by far, I don't want to say the word finesse, but he's the most fluid in space and athletic guy that we have for
Hmm.
sure. And he has worked really hard to be a road grader like the other guys that we want, because that's kind of the engine that drives everything for us. So those guys have played a ton. And then the other tackle would be Lucas Scott, and he gives us a ton of flexibility because he plays
Yeah.
tackle and guard, and he is awesome at everything. He's a 2,000 yard rusher in high school who
Wow.
came here as a D lineman, moved to tight end, and then moved to O line. So he's really only been playing O line for last year in 2 games, and
Mm.
he is powerful. He is quick. He's a state champ wrestler, and he's a badass in everything that he does.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other 3 guys, the inside guys, the guard box. our guard box has been a huge strength for us in the last two games. Bill Katsianis is playing left guard. He was actually our offensive player of the game from the first game. He played so well. He's been a kid
Mm.
who he's had a really hard time staying healthy for not just through kind of happenstance, but he has always been super high talented. Now he's healthy and he's mature and he's ready to roll. And he is playing as high level of football as you can find and done an unbelievable job. He's probably the most violent difference maker we have as far as like a one-on-one block. Like he
Mm.
does things that are. I rode back on the plane from the Florida Atlanta game next to T-Rob, and I was sitting there grading the film, and about every, T-Rob's sitting there trying to sleep, and I just kept hitting his arm, saying, "Look at Bill." He was just giving me a dirty look. So, yeah, I get fired up about Bill. So he does a great job. The other guard is Paolo Generali, who's a sophomore, who's made his first two starts. And he is a like him, Bill Katsianis, and Brady Small look like they're, three of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. I mean, they look like they're brothers, like from the same gene pool, these guys. They're all sawed off, jacked, athletic, physical, violent
Yeah.
guys. And Paolo we knew he would physically be really good. He has done an unbelievable job in the summer and in fall camp of mentally going from like, okay, I kind of know I got it, to like I have mastered the material, and he has rocketed himself to a different stratosphere as far as a player. And then our center is Brady Small.
Right.
I
Superstar.
I don't have enough things good to say about that dude. You want to talk about the model of what you want? He's going to start every single game here if as long as he's healthy, and he gets better every rep of every day. He model of consistency with his attitude, his effort, his physicality, his assignments, his technique. He shows up and works his ass off every day to do it right.
Mm.
And he is, I mean, you give him an acute coaching point to fix, and he fixes it. I mean, he is as fun to coach as there is. And those six guys are playing at a very, very high level as far as we
Yeah.
evaluate them. And then we have a group of young guys behind that, like coming up, that we feel really good, and long, big body athletic kids that we feel great about. So they're at the phase where they're going to be getting names you hear about. We got some 6'8", 6'6" guys, but they just need a little bit of time with Connor Hughes and locked in the weight room and eating and lifting. But yeah, the group that's been playing, they're doing a great job. And the other thing too, like our tight ends are integrated into that.
Yep.
So they're always attached to the box. They're in line in our unbalanced formations, playing tackle. And
Yep.
that's where, again, obviously I'm biased because I think the offensive line is I'll defend those guys and everything. And the best kids, like, coaching our O line is you show up and try to not screw them up because they're the best, do everything right. But Coach Worley has done such a great job of like relieving pressure off of those guys. Like if you're thinking of a series for us or two series, you're getting inside zone runs, you're getting inside gap runs, you're getting double option plays, you're getting triple option plays, you're getting counter runs, counter passes, under center, you're getting gun, you're getting misdirection. Like he's doing so many other things to take pressure off of us just having to win all by ourselves that it's
Yeah.
manufacturing some of those seams. And then on top of which, like you said, the skill kids like do such a great job with everything blocking and like,
Yeah.
I got asked by all my friends in coaching, like, hey, what could you say? Like after my first year of working here, like, how do you explain the culture? I said, I will tell you one thing that's unique about Jeff Monken's culture that I've never heard of anywhere else. Our skill kids would rather be the guy blocking for someone else to score than to have the ball and score themselves. And I've never seen, and it's sincere. It's not
Yeah.
like I've never heard of that anywhere
That's
else.
every time I interview one of those kids, that's like all they talk, like not all they talk about, but their primary discussion point is around blocking. And it's
Like
like I can
my,
interview Hayden or Kanye or Noah or any of them, and Miles, all they want to talk about is blocking.
you
And
can't say
it's
like
pretty
some
cool.
of those guys that are just great football, like some of the tight ends like Crossan and Pulaski are
Yeah.
elite, like Hayden Reed and Miles Stewart was our unsung hero of the game Saturday. He played 55 plays and blocked his ass off. He played awesome and he didn't get a
Yeah.
carry.
Yeah,
So like
I
he
didn't
didn't care. He's
see
just happy
like
we won.
during when I was at the game, I didn't get to see Miles, but when I went back and watched it on TV, I was like, oh my gosh, he had like a ton of lead blocks, a couple pancakes. Like he was all over it.
He
Like,
played awesome, like what Hayden Reed does. Hayden Reed jumps in at slot,
yeah,
he detaches, he plays in the box, he plays a B back, he plays on special team. Hayden Reed is one of the best football players we've had running around here, man. Those guys are so
yeah,
impressive. And coach, like I said, Coach Romero, he knows all this stuff inside and out. So, you can jump in and you might be a kid who might have a 100 or 200 level understanding, but Coach Romero is coaching you and you're producing at a 400 level. So, like, there's some, Coach Smith does the same, Coach Blackshear does the same, and Powers. I mean, it's a really neat group to be around.
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the Army offense has really impressed some people early on. So, with that being said,
That was
they're
the one guy I haven't talked. Bryson Daly is the guy who makes the whole thing go. So
right.
he knows, he and Coach Worley are obviously on the same page. And then Bryson, I mean, what would you want different about that guy? Like you saw him on the play, pitches it to Noah Short, and then he hits over 20 miles on the GPS
Yeah,
and laying blocks 55 yards downfield and playing till his
yeah.
growing up. And I mean, he's awesome.
Yeah, it is the offense is really exciting right now. The fan base is pumped about it. The media is pumped about it. I mean that you should like see us in the press box. We're like we see you guys on TV, and we're kind of the same reactions. We
I was
can't
gonna
cheer
say you
because
should
it's a
see me in the
working
press
press
box.
box, but I'm like pretty awesome. So,
No doubt. I'm
um,
the same way in the press box. You get it. You kind of, it's hard because you have a job that you're assigned to do, and you want to get wandering eyes and peek where the ball's going to go or peek if it's going to happen, but you got to watch your spot. And so yeah, it's been a fun season so far for sure.
Yeah, so with that being the case, you guys are off to a great start, but it's two games. And I know they're West Point kids, so they can focus and ignore the noise better than anybody else. But when, me and you were their age, we didn't have social media to deal with. And so they see stuff, right? So how does Coach Munkin and Coach Vitti, Coach Worley, and you and the rest of the staff keep them focused on Rice next game, what we got to do next, fundamentals? Hey, I asked Coach Monken Saturday, did the game plan execute exactly the way you wanted to? And he was like, Joe, there's always things we could work on, right? So
Yeah. He does such a good job. Like it's easy for us to follow Coach Munkin's lead on that, like all fall in line and go with it because it's sincere. When Coach Munkin's like, hey, we need to worry about ourselves and focus on what we can do better, no matter how well you did something, we want to find a way to do it better. Like as talented as you are, 100% of our kids that play in a game will play against someone who is more talented than them at some point. So you need the technique and the knowledge and the toughness to fill in the cracks where you might be deficient at some point. You know what I mean? Like we're going to play Notre Dame later at the end of the year at some point.
yeah.
Like, they probably have good players. I haven't seen them yet, but they're probably pretty good. So that's Coach Monken believes that in his bones, and our kids know that. So when he
Okay, so we're gonna keep rolling. So almost done here. Okay. Yeah, so speaking of adjustments and rule changes in college football and everything else and kind of the new environment, how have the iPads helped you make in-game adjustments, or how are you guys using those?
game changer good. I can't even explain it to you. So I'm in the press box and when the press box ones are hardwired in. So 5 to 6 seconds after a play is over, we then have the sideline shot and the tight shot. So it's in that, and the quarterback communication directly from Coach Worley to the quarterback has been awesome. And it's been really neat just because it's like it's everyone's kind of learning out their processes and systems with it at the same time. So it's, hey, how do you operate this? How do you do this? On the headsets, Coach Vitti and I have our own O-line channel. So when a
Mm.
gets over, Coach Worley's able to, cover everything with the offensive staff that we need. And then when he goes over to talk to quarterbacks, me and Coach Vitti can jump on with each other, talk to a couple things. And when he sits and meets with the O-line, I'm able to hear every word of every adjustment he's covering. And so, we're able to sit there and say, hey, we can adjust something with a scheme thing, with an eye thing, a technique. It's been the only downside is like I don't ever get to watch the defense or special teams much anymore because you're always messing with that.
Because you're always looking at video, yeah.
Yeah. So my wife or my dad, I should say, gives me a hard time because he's like, every time they show you on TV in the press box, you're just breathing out of your mouth, looking at some iPad. So, which is true. So
You're
that's
like, sorry, Dad, I'm doing my job.
yeah, but it's been awesome. I mean, I can't say enough good things about it, and that has been a rare win of something new that has been for the betterment of the game, probably. So
Yeah, it seems like it would be a great
now
tool.
I
So
will
that's
say
super
this:
cool.
it's hard. It's hard. Think if you're a player though, you got to be. There's some tact to how you have to address it because if you're a player and you make a mistake, you don't want to sit there during a game and just have your coach sit there and show you every mistake you make over and over again. Then,
Right.
oh yeah, by the way, good luck next series. So that's why I talk to our kids. I think some of the best in competition coaches are MMA fighter coaches or boxing coaches because when the competition starts, they give you nothing but information on how to win.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
like
That's
oh
like which I wrestled in, and in folk style wrestling you can coach the whole time, but in freestyle like in the
yes,
Olympics, they don't really coach you until in between the periods, kind of like boxing in between the rounds, same
exactly
concept.
right. So there's some tact to it about like how do I get them this critical information in a way that is inspiring and positive to these kids so they feel like I can go out and do a great job. So I always think about The Office with Michael and Jan. And Jan keeps his tripod in the bedroom so she can give me pointers right afterwards. And I always think about that. It's like, oh yeah, I thought about that. That's what the kids probably feel like. So
That's hilarious.
I
Oh
was,
my God.
there's there's human elements to it like that you got to massage a little bit, even at a place
Right.
in here.
Yeah, it's more, I guess you guys are more focused on scheme and adjustments. I mean, you might make a technique correction here or there, but you're not harping on it all day long.
Yes,
So,
very much, very much.
yeah. Cool. And then last question for you, Coach Drinkle. What are you guys focused on during the bye week and kind of long term? What do you think's the number one thing the offensive line needs to improve to get to where you need to be the rest of the season?
Man, narrowing it to one thing. Here's
Or give me a couple. I don't care. That's fine.
well, here's what I know. Championship teams obviously execute very well, but they typically stay healthy, or they develop a really good depth. So when people get banged, like it's a long year, and it's a challenging schedule in a very challenging conference. So I think for us is to continue to like the bye week. The first question you ask, the bye week is kind of a balance between how do we maximize rest but prepare and get ahead of our opponents. So it's kind of balancing those out throughout the course of the week. And luckily, I don't have to mess with that. Coach Hughes and Coach Monk can do all that
Mhm.
stuff and meet with the coordinator, all three coordinators, and get that stuff done. And so that's kind of what goes on during the bye week. And then as far as like what we need to get better at is like the just continuing for us to develop our depth so that the next man in there's little to no drop off. I would tell you that's probably the next big thing. I thought going into the season, I talked this with Coach Vitti a lot. I think there were some spots where we were really talented up front, but really, really inexperienced. Like people don't realize this last year, but like the 5 linemen we started the Army Navy game with, one played O line in high school. One. And that was
Wow.
Jackson Filipowicz, the smallest one of them all. So, you're looking at, you know, getting this group more ready, like so that if a 2 goes in, he sees himself as, man, if you think Brady Small is one of the best centers in football, the next center better think he's the second best center in football.
Right.
That can't be, hey, something's wrong with Brady. The next guy goes in and we'll just take a huge step back and that's okay. So I would tell you kind of that sense of urgency is developing our
Mhm.
guys. And we got guys that you can like I said, Coach Vitti, man, when he challenges those guys, they know it's from a place of love and sincerity and they will listen. It's genuine. So those guys answer the bell every single time. And we got a great group of kids who work their ass off to do it. And collectively, like I think there's a really good competition on offense. Like the quarterbacks want to be the best position group. The offensive line want to be the best position group. The fullbacks want to be the best position group. So the receivers and so on and so forth. So each one of us competes to do that. And I think that helps us a lot as far as getting guys ready throughout the course of a long, long season.
Yeah, absolutely. Depth super important, especially as the season drags on. So, with that being said, the bye week's probably coming at a good time. And an Army schedule, as you look at it, you guys have a number of buys throughout the season. It's kind of a long season start to finish, but there's a lot of breaks in there, which are probably good. So,
I remember coaching in like the third round of the playoffs when I was a head coach, and I was like, holy cow, this season's never going to end. And that was like 3 weeks before they play the Army Navy game. So
right.
the seasons here are long. So
Exactly.
you got to be a little
Exactly.
weird and have a little bit of fun to keep your sanity around this joint. I think that's like
Yeah.
that everywhere. So
Definitely. Well, Coach Drinkall, thanks so much for your time. We know you're
yeah,
super
thank you for
busy,
having
so
me.
we really appreciate you spending this much time with us. Fans love hearing from you, so this is great. Army fans, this has been Joe Iacono with GoBlackKnights.com, along with Army offensive line coach Matt Drinkall. Go Army, beat Navy, and